Hello, guys, and welcome back to the NW Sportscast. Today, we're going to be talking a lot about the Seattle Seahawks, a lot of new coaching hires slash rumors. Mariners. Levi still has a little bit of a rant. Hear that in a little bit. And maybe some NFL draft talk. A lot of good things happening in Seattle sports right now. But first, the Seattle Seahawks, they have some coaching, a hiring for an assistant coach and some rumors about who their OC and DC is. Levi, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, first off, talking about Leslie Frazier, he has been hired to be the Seahawks' new assistant head coach. I'm not sure if this means he's going to also be the defensive coordinator. Not that it really matters because Mike Macdonald is going to be calling the defensive plays, like he said. At least he said that in his press conference. But Leslie Frazier is an interesting name. I've seen some people in the Seahawks fan base kind of dissing on him because Pete Carroll, I'm pretty sure, had a winning record against him when he was the coach of the Vikings. But more recently, Leslie Frazier was the defensive coordinator for the Bills, and he was really, really good with the Bills. I mean, they were one of the most successful defenses for quite a long time. Even
Yeah.
before Josh Allen was drafted, they were at least competing on defense against teams like the Patriots in that division. And then they got Josh Allen, and of course, it made that team 10 times better. But they were, I believe I saw something when he was over the entire span of him as defensive coordinator, they were number 2 in total scoring defense, and they were number 1 in turnovers. So
Mhm.
his nickname is the chaos, or something about chaos, right? He loves to create chaos, and he does that by just kind of moving pieces around in ways that
Yeah.
the quarterbacks would not expect them to be, and that's what causes all these turnovers. Because yeah, I mean his defenses have always been successful at creating turnovers, getting interceptions, forcing fumbles, and I think that's great. I think that that's exactly the type of person that you want having an input on your defense, a little bit like Pete Carroll. And I think this does kind of solidify the idea that Pete Carroll's not going to be with the organization kind of in that role. That I know they discussed maybe a front office role for him. I think hiring Leslie Frazier kind of shows that maybe Pete Carroll doesn't want to do that, because I don't see the need for hiring Leslie Frazier if Pete Carroll's still in the building. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Leslie Frazier is a good hire for the Seattle Seahawks. Again, how much does it really matter? Probably not much in the end of the day. I think it's a lot, kind of like a culture guy, almost a mentor for McDonald to look up to in a sense, even though he is the head coach. Leslie Frazier, a little bit older of a guy. He's been in the league a lot longer. So I think that's kind of what this is for Mike McDonald. A guy you can kind of look to and ask for advice, and someone that can steer him in the right direction. So on that front, I think it is a good hire. But how much do I really think it will affect the Seahawks season? Very, very minimal. And that's just my opinion. But something that I think would affect the Seahawks season a lot, and I'm not sure exactly what your opinion on this is Ryan Grubb being the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. It's a guy that, a couple of weeks ago, he was in Alabama. He still, I think, probably is in Alabama. And if I had to guess, he's probably going to be the offensive coordinator for the Crimson Tide next year. But if there's a chance we can get him in Seattle, back up in Lumen Field, a little bit south of Husky Stadium, I think that'd be great, Levi.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a risk when you hire a guy from college. Just there's a lot of guys from college who hasn't worked out. Cliff Kingsbury, Matt
Yeah.
Rule, a lot of really, really good offensive head coaches from college come to the NFL and just can't implement that. So there's a risk there, but there's also, we point to Jim Harbaugh, had a lot of success in college, came to the NFL and was also successful. So if you think that Ryan Grubb's offense at UW can translate to the NFL, then yeah, that would be a pretty good hire. And then, Drew, do you think that that could come with Michael Penix Jr. potentially in the draft?
I think if we had Ryan Grubb, there'd be a lot more sentiment behind trading up to get Michael Penix. I think Michael Penix right now is a top 10 pick. I think
Really?
that him going to the national championship really elevated his stock in a way that I just don't see him falling to 16. I think you'd have to trade up to get Michael Penix. But if you get Grubb in here, I mean, it's just adds even more fuel to the fire in getting Michael Penix Jr. This is a guy that can really change your franchise. And it's kind of my next question, Levi. We've been talking a little bit about this in the last couple of weeks, and we're going to continue talking about it because it is possibly the biggest move in the offseason for the Seahawks, even over getting a guy like Mike McDonald, is what do you do at the quarterback position, the most important position in sports? Geno Smith right now is at the helm. Do you move off Geno Smith, Levi? Do you trade up in the draft? Do you hope a quarterback falls to you? Do you trade for Russell Wilson? I mean, there's a lot of different options. What would you do if you are John Schneider?
If I'm John Schneider, I'm keeping Geno around. I'm not sure what the other option would be. I don't think we should trade for Justin Fields. I don't think we should sign Kirk Cousins for more money than what it would take to pay Geno. So yeah, I would keep Geno. I think for next year
But
he's
Levi,
the
you're
better
not winning a
option.
Super Bowl with Geno Smith, so what's the point?
Well, I would draft somebody in the first round, so either Penix or maybe, JJ McCarthy if Bo Nix is available. I would draft somebody in the first round and I would sit him for a year behind Geno Smith. That's what I would do. I don't think that the goal for next season is Super Bowl. I think the goal for next season is let's develop, let's hope and see if Mike McDonald can fix the defense and move from there. But you're not winning the Super Bowl next year, no matter who's at quarterback. I don't think. The first year head coaches are not there to make the Super Bowl. They're there to start building.
I know, and I think by start building is getting a franchise quarterback, and that starts with
So
drafting someone.
yeah, I'm telling you, I want to draft somebody too. We agree.
But I don't want to keep Geno Smith.
So you said last week that you did though. I'm
No,
just
I
not
don't.
here.
I don't want to keep Geno Smith unless it's for JJ McCarthy. I've been saying that.
Unless okay, so you're banking on getting one of the other five then.
I would trade up. I've been saying that whole time.
Okay,
I think if you
trade up.
don't trade up, you keep Geno Smith.
Yeah. Well, I don't.
That's my
Yeah,
my argument the whole time has been if you don't trade up, you keep Geno Smith
I
and
wouldn't trade up. Yeah, I wouldn't trade up
you draft JJ. See, I would.
because I think that if you're trading up, you're leveraging too much. Unless you're trading up
But
literally
why?
to
Why
number
do you
one.
think it's leveraging too
If
much, Levi?
unless you're trading up literally to number one to take Caleb, or maybe if you're taking Jaden Daniels at 3, but like don't if you trade up to 8 to draft Penix and you have to give up like multiple first round picks to do that. I mean, obviously it depends on the price, but I wouldn't give up a bunch of picks in the future for a possibility at quarterback. If I'm giving up a bunch of picks, I want it to be for a sure thing at quarterback. And the only two quarterbacks that are a sure thing are probably going to go number 1 and number 3 in my opinion. I don't even think Drake May's a sure thing. I think
I
Drake
don't think
May
none of
could
these guys
bring
are sure things. Caleb Williams might go to the Bears and just be absolutely doomed, and within 2 years, everyone says he's a bust.
yeah,
That could
I don't
happen.
see that happening, but maybe.
You don't see that happening.
No.
You
I
don't
think
see in the
I think
Bears organization. You don't see Caleb Williams could
no.
fail.
I think that maybe he won't have the amazing Hall of Fame career that people think he might have, but I don't think he's going to fail. I think it could go very similar to Andrew Luck on the Colts. I think he could make the wild card a bunch, maybe not win the division as much because there is other good teams in that division, but I think he's going to be a good player for them.
So what if okay? What if you make the decision to keep Geno Smith and Penix falls into your lap?
Then you take him.
So you take Penix and you keep Geno for a year,
Yeah.
and then
And then
you
you
sit
make
Penix
and then
behind him.
or you could if for Penix, I'd be willing to entertain the idea of a quarterback competition in training camp because Penix is old enough that I think he could take over. He's 5-year player in college, so I think that you could even let them compete in training camp, and then you know what? If Geno wins the job like he did over Drew Lock, then you let Geno play because clearly having that competition with Drew Lock was good for him last year. Um, and if Michael Penix wins the job, then Geno's the backup, and now you have a high end backup, and you also have a rookie quarterback. So
Yeah, I'm looking at a lot of mock drafts right now, and not many has Penix going at 16 or higher.
yeah, no,
So
they don't think Penix is a top 10 pick.
no, not at all. I mean, this one, for example, from NFL.com, released about a week ago. You got Caleb Williams at 1, Drake May 2, Jaden Daniels 3, Marvin Harrison 4. Then you got Brock Bowers 5, Adunze 6, and then you got a few more guys in 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There's not many notable, there's a lot of O tackles, for example, cornerbacks. Then they have us taking Byron Murphy from Texas, D tackle at 16. They have Bo Nix going at 19, and they do not have JJ McCarthy or Michael Penix going in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, they just they're not assuming that teams are going to be desperate. I think it ultimately every year there ends up being a team that's desperate and reaches on a quarterback, but recently that hasn't been the case. I mean, look at last year. Will Levis was meant to be a top 10 pick in the draft, but nobody was desperate enough to reach on Will Levis. Nobody even took him in the second round. He fell all the way to the third round.
Yeah.
So it depends on how do teams feel about their need at quarterback. It also depends on how do teams feel about other teams need a quarterback. Because if, like the Broncos, for example, they say they want to draft a quarterback, if they are comfortable waiting for JJ McCarthy, then they might not draft a quarterback in the first round and then wait till the second round. But if they think that somebody else would take JJ McCarthy, then they would have to reach on it. Like, you know what I mean? It depends on how teams think about other teams, how teams think about themselves, how they evaluate their own needs. There's a lot that goes into it.
There's a lot that goes into this. Levi, if you're sitting at 16 and let's say you have a decision between Bo Nix or, I don't know. I just throwing names out there, like a really solid O tackle or a cornerback or someone along those lines. What are you taking in that scenario?
If I'm not taking a quarterback,
No, you have a decision, but the decision's between Bo Nix and a guy like, I don't know, like Tyler, a couple of O tackles. There's one from Oklahoma, Tyler Utah. He's projected at 18. Troy Fatunu from Washington, O line. Guys like that. Are you picking, Byron Murphy, D tackle from Texas, or are you drafting Bo Nix at 16?
where are they projecting the top edge rushers to go?
This is just NFL.com. Dallas Turner from Alabama, they have going at 8. D and edge rusher, and that's the highest projected edge rusher. And then you have D tackle and Byron Murphy, who's projected at 12, and Jared Verse edge from Florida State at 11.
Yeah. So if Verse falls to, if he's still available, I would take him.
Over Bo Nix.
Over Bunny. There's a couple other pretty solid edge rushers in the draft, though, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, at 17, projected right below us is there's a lot of Polynesians in this draft. Sorry if I messed this up. Laiutu Latu from UCLA.
Okay, yeah, that could be an option as well. I don't know. I think that I would take quarterback or edge rusher first round. I think those are quarterback, not because quarterback is our biggest need, but because it's the most important
I think it
position.
is. I think that's where our fundamental ideologies of how to construct a football team are different.
I don't think they are. I mean, I think there are
I think, what do
three.
you mean? I think the number one priority this offseason is to get a new quarterback, and you clearly don't.
It can be if the right opportunity is there, but you
No, no,
don't
I'm saying
force.
what your opinion is. I'm not
Yeah,
I'm not
no.
just like
My opinion is I don't want to force the quarterback because if it's not the right opportunity, then I don't want to overpay for a possibility at quarterback when there are other holes. Like if we had an amazing offensive line and a top 3 defensive line in the league, then I'd be all in for trading up in the draft and getting rid of some future picks, but we don't. Like there's a bunch of holes on this roster outside of quarterback. And so what you could also do is plug the holes now, draft a quarterback next year. You know what I mean? Like there's other ways to do this besides let's get rid of all of these future picks, trade up to draft Jaden Daniels, and then what if Jaden Daniels doesn't work out?
yeah, what if? What What if the sun doesn't rise tomorrow? We're just not going to be here. I mean, it's time to act right now. The most important position in sports is the quarterback. And right now we have a guy who is bottom half of the league, and that's just not going to get it done.
I agree though. Eventually,
On the
we need to upgrade
49
from a
Levi,
team.
on the 49ers, what is their weakness?
Their weakness, they don't really have a
Yeah.
weakness, but their weakness, I guess, is probably quarterback.
Okay, quarterback, and he's a top 10 quarterback, and that's their weakness.
I
So,
wouldn't I wouldn't say he's top 10.
yes, he
He
is.
Brock,
Yes, he
no. Brock
is.
Purdy top, no.
Last year,
No.
last year, Brock Purdy is top 10. Please don't even get me
No,
started.
I
Do not.
disagree.
Last
Maybe based off the way he played last year, but overall, if you take every
Going into next
quarterback,
year, Brock Purdy's a top 10 quarterback. Regardless, I'll move on.
okay,
Whatever. Top
I could
16.
probably name 15 quarterbacks better than Brock Purdy.
If the Seahawks are in the Super Bowl this year, Geno Smith would everyone would look to Geno Smith and just be like, wow, like what a weakness. There's no way that the Seahawks can win the Super Bowl with Geno Smith. And I would agree with them. There's just zero chance we can win a Super Bowl with Geno Smith. But there is a chance we can win a Super Bowl with Jaden McDaniels or or Michael Penix or even JJ McCarthy for that matter.
Yeah, it's possible. Jim Harbaugh went on Colin Cowherd's show yesterday and said that he thinks JJ McCarthy should be the #1 overall pick. So, maybe there's something in JJ McCarthy that I'm not seeing, but when I watch him, I don't see much special there. I see a lot of game manager kind of stuff, and he can run. That I'll give him that. Honestly, JJ McCarthy might be a very similar player to Brock Purdy, but he might be Brock Purdy if he was drafted in the first round. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at some other draft boards. I think obviously I think if Dallas Turner or if Jared Verse falls to you, you take him. Um Jerzon Newton, we're probably not going to be able to get, unfortunately. Um JC Latham, offensive tackle from Alabama, he could be an option there. Um, or maybe, I don't know, this might be a reach, but Braylon Trice out of Washington, I saw him play a lot. I also watched more Husky football than any other team, so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I thought he was a really good player, and he's projected to go at about 25, so that might be a bit of a reach, but he's also a good player. Yeah, I think there's a lot of really good edge rushers, defensive ends who you could take, and I would not be opposed to that. Now, if we drafted a running back or a wide receiver in the first round, that would make me pretty annoyed.
I want a quarterback.
I want a quarterback too, but it's about getting the right quarterback. I don't
But
want to reach on somebody when there's better players
no
available.
matter how smart NFL GMs think they are, at some point you just gotta take a shot at a quarterback. And
Yeah, I
eventually
agree.
that'll hit. And I would way rather have, I would way rather draft a quarterback this year, try him out for a couple years, draft him in 2026, try him out for a couple years, then hold on to Geno Smith for 2 more years, go 9-8 and 8-9, then draft a quarterback, and then realize, well, now we're in the same spot as we were 2 years ago, but we didn't take a shot at JJ McCarthy. I would way rather see what we have in these quarterbacks in a really good quarterback draft class than draft, Trice right now. Like that's just my opinion, but
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's your point is valid. It makes sense, and maybe that is the route we take. If it is, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I'm just saying I don't think that's the best course of action.
all right. Well, moving on at the Seattle Mariners, they've made a lot of really interesting moves in this last few weeks. But still, Levi, you are maybe a little bit critical for
Yeah,
why the Seattle Mariners still should make even more moves. And I'm with you. I think the Mariners making more moves is a great thing. But if we go into this next season with the current lineup, I will be a happy man. Levi, not so much. Tell the audience why you don't think so.
yeah. Look, it's not that I don't think we have a good team, and it's not that I don't like the moves that we've made this offseason. I like about half the moves we've made this offseason. Um,
So
but
you don't like.
I like the recent ones. I don't like the
Okay.
old ones. But what I am getting frustrated with is I see all these Mariners fans. A month ago, you were all united with me in our crusade, you could say, against the front office and our crusade against the ownership, saying we need to spend money. You have to let us spend money. This is unacceptable. And since then, the Mariners have went out. We signed one guy to a 12 million for 2-year deal, not that much money. And then we made a couple of trades that actually saved money. And now we are in a situation where if we are done making moves this offseason, we would have a lower payroll this year than we did last year. And I think if you're a fan who was mad about not spending a month ago, then just because we traded for Jorge Polanco, I like the trade. I'm excited about Polanco. Just because we traded for him and Mitch Haniger doesn't mean we should just stop caring that we're not spending money, because the Mariners made more money than any other team the past 2 years. There's no excuse, in my opinion, for this front office and this ownership group to not be willing to spend. And the fact that we were told, even as far as a month ago, even as far as 3 weeks ago by Jerry Dipoto, that we were going to have a higher payroll this year. We were told at the beginning of the offseason by the ownership that we were going to have a higher payroll. And now we are going to be told in the coming weeks that, well, because we made the right moves, now we actually don't have to increase the payroll. And I'm sorry, excuse my profanity, that's bullshit. That should not be allowed. This is not a team that has shown we can win with a small budget before. We're not the Oakland A's or the Tampa Bay Rays. That's not our identity. This is a team that has all the pieces in place to win. You can put $15-20 million into a legitimate star player like Blake Snell, or on the offensive side of the ball like Cody Bellinger. And is that a risk? Sure, it's a risk. But when you have the 18th highest payroll in the league and $20 million to Cody Bellinger, you know what that would put you at? It would put you at like the 15th highest payroll in the league. I think it's unacceptable that we're not willing to make that kind of a move, because if you want to actually prove that you care about winning, not just trading prospects away, but actually prove you care about winning, you have to put money where your mouth is. And the Mariners are not doing that.
Yes, and I would agree with you, but I just don't think that Justin Hollander and Jerry Dipoto really have much other financial, spending to do.
Well,
I
if
just
they
don't
if
think
they were
that.
going if they ever plan in the offseason was we're gonna cut payroll, they should have been clear about that in
But I
November.
don't think that was their plan. I think their plan was to increase payroll, and in November, when the Root Sports deal fell through, the
Well, then they
ownership
should have
said,
told us in December, oh, by the way, we're actually lowering payroll. They were telling us still in January that we're gonna up the payroll this year, and we're not clearly gonna do that.
"Okay, so maybe."
According to the report that I saw from Ryan Divish today, the Mariners haven't even negotiated with Blake Snell. We haven't even tried. Like we're not even giving that consideration. That is how little we want to spend money. We're not even entertaining the opportunities to sign a free agent who is literally posting like every other day about how much he loves Seattle, who's coaching a baseball team in Seattle. I mean, that is the most
I
slam dunk.
seriously doubt that report's true, and we haven't given Blake Snell a phone call.
So Ryan Divish is the like one of the best beat
If
reporters
anything, I think Blake Snell's probably given the Seattle
giving
Mariners for
out
an
phone call. Yeah.
I just don't see any way that we haven't negotiated with him. Regardless, I see what you're saying. I just don't think that Justin Hollander and Jerry Dipoto have any financial leeway right now, and that is on the ownership. And
Yeah.
I
No,
will
I'm
get
not
just
really
as mad
blaming
at
it on
you with the
them.
ownership as the next guy. I'll throw my hands up in
Yeah.
the air and I'll say, "Curse you! We need to spend more money." Blah blah blah. But what's the point? You know what I'm trying to say?
The
Like,
point is to so that we get into a situation like the Baltimore Orioles where they actually sold the team to new owners who are willing to put money where their mouth is. And
all
I
right,
don't think, I honestly, this is a hot take. I don't think the Mariners are capable of consistently winning for many, many years with John Stanton as our owner. Because this is what's gonna happen. Every time we get a good player, John Stanton's gonna say, sorry, you can't pay him. Cal Raleig's probably gonna be traded. Logan Gilbert probably gonna be traded. And then the next great rookie, Bryce Miller, probably gonna end up getting traded. Like that's the unfortunate reality is that the Mariners, if this is really where our budget is at, we can't afford to extend anybody that we currently have. We have Julio locked up, we have Castillo locked up, and that's basically where we're at. And then we have a bunch of guys whose the clock is ticking. And if that is the way that you're going to run a baseball team, then you shouldn't be the owner. Sorry, You shouldn't be the owner. And I don't think we can win with him as owner. I think we need to sell. I think you can win for a few years, but then in 2 years, when Jerry Dipoto says, "Hey John, do you have $15 million for the next 8 years we can give to Logan Gilbert to keep him a Mariner?" And John Stanton says, "Sorry, you have to trade him because I can't do that." Like that's not a winning. Like that's not what a winning culture does.
Yeah, it's a really, really unfortunate hand that the Mariners have been dealt from, the ownership group, but
He says,
it
"Hey
is what it
John, I
is.
want to extend. I want to extend Cole Young after he, debuts. Let's say Cole Young has a great debut and looks like he's the next franchise shortstop, and he says, "Sorry, we already paid Julio. Can't pay another young guy." Like that's what's gonna end up happening, and then we're gonna be stuck, unable to pay anybody because of our owner who won't spend.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna kind of change it up a little bit, Levi. I'm gonna ask you a question, and I'm just gonna get the best pitching rotations in the MLB,
Okay.
and I'm just gonna see if you think the Mariners have a better pitching rotation than the team that I provide you with. Because yes, talking to Blake Snell would be great, but the Mariners are already in a really, really good spot, and I don't think that anyone really needs to tell our audience how good we are at our pitching.
Yeah, that's true.
But for example, so let's give it a quick team, the Yankees. Do you think the Seattle Mariners have a better pitching rotation than the Yankees?
So they got Cole. They've got. They just signed Marcus Stroman. Who else? Who else do they have in their rotation? Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you who their fifth starter is or even their fourth. So I'm gonna say the Mariners have a better rotation.
Okay. Do you think that they have a better pitching rotation than the Dodgers?
I'm gonna say no. I think the Dodgers with the Dodgers, if they can stay healthy, which that is a serious concern for them because Bueller and Kershaw both miss a lot of time. But Bueller as their number two now, Yamamoto's their one, and then they have a really really solid group of guys behind that. They just signed James Paxton, who also has health concerns, but no, I think the Dodgers are probably a little bit better.
Okay, so you think the Dodgers are a better rotation than the Seattle Mariners?
Yeah,
Do you think that the Mariners have a better pitching rotation than the Mets?
yeah. The Mets, I don't. The Mets have nobody. I mean, the Mets have they just signed Severino, but the Mets traded Scherzer last year, so they don't have him anymore. They don't have Degrom. I'm not. They have the ghost ball guy. What's his name? I'm blanking on his name, but the ghost ball, Kodai Senga. But no, I
Oh
don't
yeah.
think I think the Mets are not as good as the Mariners.
How about let's just go in the AL West, the Houston Astros.
That's close. Framber is really good. Justin Verlander is really good. I think I'd say the Astros by a couple inches, but I think we both have really good rotations.
So you think right now the Astros have a better pitching rotation head to head than the Seattle Mariners?
Yeah, I think barely, but I think they do.
In a 3-game series, though, let's say that, then I think our top three is better now.
Yeah, I mean, who's their three? McCullers probably is their three. That's close. I mean, McCullers and Gilbert are pretty similar. I'd probably
Yeah.
take Gilbert. Now, what's nice is the Mariners has a much younger rotation, so talent is probably similar, but the Mariners is a lot younger, so the chances that they get injured is higher, as well as long term. I think we're better situated for long term.
Yeah. I'm just kind of bringing this up because my point is I think that the Seattle Mariners have one of the best pitching rotations in baseball. I would argue top five in
Yeah,
all of baseball right now.
I have us fifth. I think we're right now. I'd actually have us fourth. I think the Astros, Dodgers, and Braves would be ahead of us. And then I would say in August, if Scherzer and DeGrom both come back for the Rangers, then they would also maybe be better than us. But right now, when they are both on the IL, then we are definitely better than them. So I would say, yeah, right now I think we're fourth.
Yeah, the Seattle Mariners pitching rotation can put the entire team on their back this year and lead the Seattle Mariners to the playoffs. You got Luis Castillo at the top. at the 1, Logan Gilbert at the 2, George Kirby at the 3. All three of those guys are preseason top 10 AL Cy Young candidates in Las Vegas. They have their, I think Bryce or George Kirby is somewhere in 8. I think Logan Gilbert is maybe somewhere around 6, and Castillo is top 4. And then you have Bryce Miller and Brian Wu bringing up the rear. These are two rookies that will only
Yeah.
get better in years 2. There's some viral stuff going around the internet right now of Bryce Miller working on another pitch. He didn't name what the pitch was. It kind of looks sort of like a Logan Gilbert splitter, though. So that is very, very interesting. These 5 guys will carry the Seattle Mariners to the promised land. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what these guys do. And then in the 6th, you might rely on an Emerson Hancock, but you have other options when inevitably something does happen. But a Blake Snell, that'd be really, really interesting if you push Brian Wu into maybe a AAA slash maybe a reliever type role, or you go 6-man rotation. It's something interesting to play with there. But I think the Seattle Mariners rotation is just so good that we could legitimately make the World Series just off of this pitching rotation, if with an average lineup.
Maybe. Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. And that was one of my goals for them this season. I said, you don't necessarily have to keep all 5, but I want to see 5 good pitchers in the rotation.
Yeah.
And we did accomplish that. So I will credit, again, a lot of credit to Jerry Dipoto. He's not working with much, and he's done a lot of really good stuff this offseason, despite being forced to cut salary. So kudos to him.
Yeah. All right, guys, that will do it. So this is the NW Sportscast. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always,
Go Mariners, go Seahawks, and go Seattle.